Caitlin Clark hasn't just stepped into the basketball world, she's detonated it like a superstar meteor. The Indiana Fever's golden rookie didn't simply transition from college dominance to theft bros. She exploded into the WNBA like a force of nature. No one could contain Dot. Her highlight reels turned into daily viral events. Her record-breaking performance set social media on fire, and her fearless, fiery leadership transferred her from promising Nukamerto face of the league almost overnight. One moment she was torching every record in Iowa history. The next she was in the WNBA making veteran defenders look like they'd never seen a crossover before. By year 2, it was clear Caitlin wasn't there to adapt. She was here to dominate. And July 2025 proved it when she walked away with one of the sport's biggest individual honors. WNBA Player of the Year. At the ESPYs, beating out legends like Breanna Stewart, A.A. Wilson, and Nafisa Collier, women who have ruled the league for years. It was a coronation mint, the type of headline you mind hang forever. Fans were in awe. Her teammates were buzzing with pride, and the basketball world thought, this is it, the beginning of a dynasty. Button. Just as her star was burning brightest, the unthinkable happened. In a heated showdown against the Connecticut Sun, the unshakable Clark suddenly slowed, her face tightening in pain, her body betraying her. Cameras caught her limping, clutching her side, and in that instant an entire arena went silent. And that's when everything changed. Just days after owning the national spotlight and taking home the biggest awards of her life, Caitlin Clark dropped a bombshell that sent shockwaves through the WNBA and broke the hearts of millions of fans. On the 17th of July, she announced she would be out for the entire 2025 WNBA All-Star weekend. No All-Star game, no three-point contest, and the worst part, both events were said to happen right in her backyard. Indianapolis, the city that had embraced her like their own daughter. This was supposed to be her weekend, her celebration, her chance to put on a show for the home crowd and her status as the undisputed face of the league. Instead, her absence became the headline. The reason that some nagging groin injury she'd been quietly battling for weeks, now aggravated during the Fever's clash with Connecticut Sunday. Clark took to social media with a raw, heartfelt message, admitting how devastated she was to step aside, but making it clear her health had to come first. Broken heart emojis, words laced with pain, and a quiet promise that this was just a step back, not the end. In true leader fashion, she vowed to be there on the sidelines, cheering her teammates and representing the Fever, even if Shackleton suit up. It was a gut punch for fans, a bittersweet moment for her teammates, and a reminder that even the brightest stars sometimes have to dim their light to protect their future. With Caitlin forced to the sidelines, the WNBA needed a replacement for one of the weekend's most anticipated events, the three-point contest. They didn't have to search far, because the perfect candidate was already wearing few. Enter Lexi Hull. For months she'd been the quiet assassin of Indiana, draining threes with a consistency only true hoopheads fully appreciated. Her percentages rank a dame home the league's best, her mechanics textbook perfect, her release pure and she wasn't the type to flood headlines or chase the spotlight. But coaches knew and opponents feared that when Lexi set her feet behind the arc, the net didn't stand a chance. Now, with Caitlin out, the spotlight found her. And this wasn't just any chance, it was a career-defining opportunity to step into one of the most visible stages in sport right in front of her home crowd in Indianapolis. But while Thekalup was an honor, it came at one of the most painful moments of her Just days earlier, Lexi suffered a heartbreaking loss. Her beloved dog Maggie, her companion of 14 years, had passed away. She posted black and white photos of their time together, calling Maggie the sweetest Mags and admitting that home would never feel the same again. The raw emotion hit fans hard. Suddenly, her all-star appearance wasn't just about basketball. It was about playing for something deeper. On a rink. Memory of the dog who'd been by her side for nearly half her life, carrying that love and loss with her as shepherd for the biggest moment of her career. When All-Star Saturday finale arrived, all eyes locked on Lexi Hull. The lights were blinding, the arena packed, the energy electric. This wasn't just a skills contest anymore. This was her audition for superstardom, her moment to prove she belonged. Among the league's elite shooters, the crowd roared as she stepped to the rack, but Lexi looked unshakable. One ball after another left her fingertips with perfect rotation, each swish slicing through the attention in the building. The crowd louder. Every rack leered, sending the Fever faithful to their feet. Even without Caitlin Clark in the court, Indianapolis felt alive again. Fans online went wild in real time, flooding comment sections with messages calling her the silent sniper, a hidden gem, finally getting her shine, and the support wasn't just coming from stands. Caitlin herself, dressed in street clothes on the sideline, rose, toe, feet, and clapped after every hot streak, cheering like a proud big sister. By the time the final shot dropped, Lexi hadn't just filled a vacant spot. She had created her own moment, a statement that she could thrive under the brightest lights. And when the scoreboard revealed she'd finished second overall, just one shot shy of winning it all, the crowd erupted as if she'd hit a finals game winner. For someone who wasn't even supposed to be there, it was the kind of breakout performance that can change a career for her. The reaction was instant and overwhelming. Social media lit up with the light clips of Lexi's flawless form, analysts calling her performance textbook perfection, and fans insisting she had officially earned her flowers. Even national outlets that reel her were suddenly posting side-by-side comparisons of her and Caitlin, dubbing them the Fever's twin assassins. Clark with the unlimited range, Hull with the surgical precision. Caitlin's post-game embrace with Lexi went viral within minutes. The rookie off-year holding her teammate close and telling reporters through a pained smile, "Lexi held it down for us tonight." That single line flooded timelines, drawing thousands of comments praising the bond between the two. But as the cheer settled, the lingering question remained, how long would Caitlin bout? The Fever's playoff hopes waiting on her return. Yet, Team Dr. Srifest to give a timetable, keeping updates vague and fueling endless speculation. Some insiders whispered that Indiana might shut her down completely to protect her long-term health, while others believed she would push through pain for a shot at the postseason. The debate exploded online. Rest her fourth future or play her if she can walk. And while Lex's star was rising fast, everyone knew the Fever's championship dream still revolved around the health of their golden superstar. In the days that followed, the Fever kept grinding just enough to hold their place in the playoff race. But the shadow of Caitlin's injury loomed over everything. Every practice update, every cryptic social media post was dissected by fans desperate for answers. Then finally, Caitlin broke her silence with a short but powerful statement that sent the Fever faithful into a frenzy. "I'm doing everything I can to be back when it matters most. Trust me, I'll be ready." It was just 12 words, but it read like a promise. 80 sir for a dramatic playoff return. At the same time, Lex's heartbreaking trite to her late dog Maggie continueto resonate deeply across the basketball community. Thousands of messages of love poured in from fellow players to complete strangers who understood the pain of losing a best friend. And woven into it all was the quiet but powerful presence of Sophie Cunningham, the Fever's emotional enforcer, offering her unwavering support to both Caitlin and Lexi, whether it was protecting her teammates on the court, lifting them up in moments of loss, or simply being the steady voice in the locker room. Sophie had become the heartbeat of the Fever. What emerged was a picture OFA team bound, not just by shared goals, but by shared love and resilience. A rare kind of sisterhood that fans could feel even from the outside looking in. What made this bond so magnetic was that it wasn't just about basketball. It was about life, loyalty, and having each other's backs when the spotlight fades. Sophie Cunningham had already shown earlier in the season that she would go to war for her teammates, famously rushing in to defend Caitlin after a brutal foul. Even though it earned her a fine from the league, she didn't care. That's what family does. Fans loved it so much they gave the trio a nickname, Tres Leches, sweet like the dessert, but enough to take on anyone in the league. Sophie embraced it fully, even wearing a custom shirt with cartoon versions of herself. Caitlin and Lexithat went viral overnight. Suddenly, this wasn't just a team, it was a movement. Whether it was celebrating wins, grinding through losses, or standing shoulder to shoulder in their hardest moments of their personal lives, these women were proving that their connection ran far deeper than the box score. Lexi was carrying the pride of her performance and the weight of her grief. Caitlin was fighting to heal and reclaim her throne. Sophie was macking Zer. Neither of them ever felt alone in the fight. Together, they weren't just a trio of talented players. They were a living, breathing example of what real sisterhood in sports looks like. By the time the dust settled on All-Star Weekend, the story had completely shifted. What was supposed to be about Caitlin Clark's absence had transformed into a celebration of Lexi Hull's emergence and the unshakable unity of the Fever's core. Social media was buzzing with side-by-side highlight reels off Caitlin's deep-range bombs and Lex lightning quick release captions reading things like 2 assassins, 1 mission, and the Fever's got double trouble. Analysts debated whether Lexi had just played her way into becoming a permanent co-star alongside Caitlin, and fans loved the idea of a 1-2 punch that could terrorize defenses for years to come. But as much as the spotlight had room for two, everyone knew the Fever's heartbeat was the bond they shared off the court. This was a team that didn't just run plays together, they lived life together. leaned on each other through heartbreak and refused to let anything break the trust they'd. In a league where drama and rivalry often grabbed headlines, the Fever were quietly building something given more powerful. A culture of love, loyalty, and belief that their time was coming. And with Caitlin on the mend, Lexi and Rhythm and Sophie holding it all together, the rest of the WNBA could feel it too. This was only the beginning. As the days rolled on after All-Star Weekend, the Fever's locker room energy felt different, sharper, tighter, almost electric. Practice weren't just about running drills. They were about building a rhythm that could carry into the playoffs. Caitlin, though still sidelined, was constantly courtsed during training sessions, leaning in with advice, clapping after every made shot, and serving as a second coach when needed. Lexi, riding the wave of her all-star performance, started shooting with a new swagger, stepping Ginto, her threes faster, taking bigger shots in scrimmages, and hitting them with deadly precision. Sophie, meanwhile, became the glue that made azure. The vibe stayed balanced. Cracking jokes one minute, getting in Adamade's face the next, if the effort wasn't there. It wasn't lost on anyone this was the kind of culture championship teams are. Built on culture where talent meets trust, and every player feels like they have a stake in the mission. Outside the court, the Fever story was blowing up. National sports shows were dissecting their chemistry. Influencers were making TikTok edits of Caitlin and Lexulites set to trending audio. Anthony Treslachey's nickname was spreading like wildfire. Fans started showing up to games in custom t-shirts and signs celebrating the trio. Local businesses in Indianapolis even began selling Treselix cupcakes in Fever colors, with proceeds going to animal shelters in honor of Lex's late dog Maggie. A gesture that melted hearts and deepened the emotional connection between Teddy and its fan base. This wasn't just a basketball narrative anymore. It was becoming a cultural one. And in a league fighting for mainstream attention, the Fever were suddenly positioned as noteworthy contenders. But also the team Yuck couldn't help but root for. But the pressure was quietly building. Every day, Caitlin remained out. The playoff got a little smaller and every close game carried more weight. The Fever knew they couldn't just survive. They had to win convincingly to prove they belonged in the upper tier of the league. Lexi and Sophie stepped into that challenge without hesitation. Lexi's scoring bursts began to turn games in Indiana's favor, while Sophie's relentless defense and floor leadership made her a nightmare for opposing guards. The media started asking a new question. Could the Fever actually thrive without Caitlin in the short term? And if they could, what would happen when she finally returned? The idea of adding a fully healthy Clark to a battle-hardened squad was starting to sound terrifying to every other one bait. Behind the scenes, Caitlin's rehab was progressing at a pace that had fans buzzing with hope. She was spotted in the practice facility taking light jumpers, moving with more fluidity, and flashing that familiar competitive grinding workouts. Every sighting sent social media into overdrive, was she coming back sooner than expected. The Fever kept their lips sealed, but teammates hinted that her return was closer than anyone realized. Sophie dropped a cryptic post on Instagram, oft three of them smiling together, with caption, "It's almost that time." Lexi reposted it with a fire emoji. It wasn't confirmation, but for Fever Nation it was enough to believe that final stretch of the season could turn into something magical. And deep down the league knew it too. Because Juan, Caitlin Clark, Lexi Hull, and Sophie Cunningham hit the floor together again. It wasn't just going to be basketball. It was going to be a statement. In the end, this was never just a story about basketball. It was about three women who turned a season of uncertainty into a season of belief. Caitlin Clark, the phenom who lit up the league and then had to sit and watch Asher, team carried the torch in her absence. Lexi Hull, the quiet shooter stepped out of the shadows, faceted brightest lights and proved she could be lethal when the game demanded it most. And Sophie Cunningham, the protector, the enforcer, the heartbeat, who made sure the bond between them never cracked, no matter what life threw their way. Together, they didn't just survive a rough stretch. They built a culture, a sisterhood, a movement that fans could feel in their bones. That rushes weren't just a nickname. They were a warning to the rest of the WNBA that Indiana had something deeper than talent. They had heart. And now, with Caitlin's return looming and the Fever firing on all cylinders, the league's about to learn what happens when family steps on the court together. It's not just a game anymore. It's powerful. It's powerful, and it's only the beginning. Music, music.